In 2021, the Ministry of Justice announced plans to build the biggest prison complex in Europe in rural North Essex, between the villages of Wethersfield and Finchingfield. If allowed to go ahead, this mega prison complex will generate years of heavy construction traffic and, once built, will be staffed 24 hours a day in 3 shifts, with many hundreds of staff all travelling in and out for each shift. Plus, imagine the deliveries of food and essentials needed every day for around 3,400 inmates, along with frequent visits from police, ambulance services, legal providers, as well as family and friends. As you can see, HMP 5 Wells, half the size of the planned prison in North Essex, is well situated next to a dual carriageway and close to key motorways.
The problem around here for having large trucks and lorries carrying all kind of construction equipment is just the physical size of the roads. They're very small, they're very twisty. They're actually very popular with cyclists because actually they're usually quite quiet. However, when we do have big lorries on, you can very clearly see that it just doesn't really work.
This area is predominantly agricultural.
The Ministry of Justice's own criteria states that new prisons must be close to a major motorway or trunk road system. But the proposed site is an extremely remote location, 18 miles from the nearest motorway and 11 miles to the nearest major A road.
And then we have about 8 or 9 miles of B roads. Similar to this is one of the main points in. At no point on this road can 2 HGVs pass easily.
That road is one of 3 routes to the proposed site. The second passes through numerous small villages and narrow listed bridges at Finchingfield and Great Bardfield. And the third route is this one, via Sybil Headingham, meaning hundreds of lorries continuously passing through this pinch point.
It's so isolated, it's ridiculous that you can even think about building a prison in this sort of site.
This is exactly why construction projects like this are built next to an A road. Their construction has to be sustainable, has to be safe. If someone was going to build Lakeside Shopping Centre or anything other than a prison, they would not look to have it 11 miles from an A road or a strategic trunk road. And I say for one of the largest construction projects in the UK probably, it's going to be almost pushing £1 billion to build these. You're going to have some serious accidents on roads that are already classified as having a high accident rate and a high collision rate.
My husband was driving me and my 3 kids on the road not that long ago, and as we've come round a corner, a lorry was pretty much in the middle of the road going too fast and basically drove us off the road, causing us to go into a ditch and burst a tyre. They just are over the middle of the road, and it's not even really their fault, it's just that the roads are too small for them.
Often I have to almost pull into a ditch, into the hedgerow to let HGVs pass.
There are so many accidents on these roads, and I think the other problem with the size of the roads is things like the bridge in Finchingfield and in Bardfield. The size of the lorries, when drivers aren't used to the roads, the bridges just can't really facilitate them because these big lorries are going over and are clipping the sides of the bridges and damaging the structures.
This is our beautiful Grade 1 listed Guildhall in Finchingfield, and as you can see, a John Lewis lorry having to stop because the building overhangs the road.
And recently the historic building was once again struck by a HGV too large to navigate these small roads. And how do these small roads cope with adverse weather conditions?
Most dual carriageways are designed to withstand any serious rainfall. They're designed to be elevated out of flood zones. What we have here is set within a valley. We have numerous watercourses and rivers flowing through here. And when there's a heavy downpour, there are numerous sections and almost every entry point coming in from Headingham to the Bardfields through to Braintree where the road is flooded. None more so out the bottom of Sculpings Lanes itself. The entrance to the base has now become almost impassable after every heavy rainfall.
Another issue with the remoteness of the area is the frequent road closures.
In the last 12 months, I think I could probably count 6 times the water main has burst. And as soon as there's a water leak on these old Victorian pipes that run all the way through here, it's complete chaos because there's no obvious other route in. Everyone starts taking small back roads.
When you close the main roads, even though the council set up detours, these detours are 7-8 miles out of people's way.
This is what happened when 2 HGVs had to pass each other recently. Thankfully, these vehicles were travelling very slowly when they met, but imagine large numbers navigating these lanes to service 2 mega prisons.
And the back lanes are where you've got people walking dogs, you've got people riding horses, you've got children on bikes. My friend's daughter was knocked off a bike riding on a very, very small single track lane, which shouldn't really have any cars on it. But because the main roads were closed because of the bridge, there was more traffic on those roads.
This increased number of HGVs is just going to create all sorts of problems.
Every single time we have closed the main roads to mend the bridge, there's been head-on collisions on the back roads. I've seen a horse killed in the road on these roads. The road was closed a good half a day, I think, because someone had come round the corner too fast and killed a horse.
Essex Police and the ambulance service have pointed out this road is not suitable for a rapid response. It is dangerous. You cannot get here quickly, safely.
Essex Police sent this response to the MOJ about their proposal for 2 mega prisons. Nationally, rural roads have the highest level of loss of life through road traffic collisions. The Wethersfield site is in a rural part of Essex fed by B roads. Existing collision data on the B1053 highlights a high number of collisions involving injury over the past 5 years. The network of roads is not suitable to cope with increased level of traffic during the construction or post-opening phase of the project without improvements. Well, you can say that again.
There's an S-bend down there, or I had to replace a fence where an ambulance came clean off the road responding to a emergency call. If people say, well, they'll have traffic management in places, who's going to police this? I mean, you don't see a traffic policeman now anywhere anyway. It'll just almost be a free-for-all at some point.
And how will the local villages built before mass-produced cars cope?
Where the houses are old, no one has parking or driveways, so as you can see how tight it is. Quite often my daughter will push her little dolly buggy, so she's in the road. The thought of big lorries coming along, it terrifies me. We're always crossing. There's just not a safe way to go round the village as it stands, let alone if you increase the traffic.
During the week of filming this, there was yet another road closure in Wethersfield, which would close off a major access route to the prison. As you can see, vehicles were mounting the footpath in order to get through. At 4:25 p.m, this 13-year-old was walking home through the village after getting off his school bus. Moments later, we observed this. And what about plans to mitigate the impact on local villages?
Oh, this is Silver Street, and the primary school is just behind me. You can probably see the zigzag lines in the road. This is one of the areas for potential mitigation. One of the things that they might do or propose to do is narrow the footpaths. Well, there's only one footpath on one side of the road, so narrowing it even further is going to make it very, very difficult for parents and children to get to school along these pavements.
Just walking around the village, the pavements are very tight. I have 2 children, we have a double buggy. Just trying to get around the village with the double buggy is really difficult.
And just along there, where the footpath does begin, that is an area where lorries often mount the curb even, and it creates such a danger for when parents are taking their children to school.
Barely do we have enough room to get through this space. Up down by the junction, the footpath is even narrower.
If you want to mitigate the narrowness of the road over there, you're going to have to take down a building. Good luck on mitigation, because it's impossible. It's impossible in Wethersfield, it's impossible in Civil Headingham, it's impossible in Finchingfield, which are the 3 villages that, if you're going to head to the airfield and these proposed prisons, you have got to come through one way or another.
And it's quite disgraceful to see such a huge amount of our money, the taxpayers' money, being paid to try and make a very large square peg fit in a very small round hole.
The concern is that the location of the prison complex won't just affect the villages in the immediate area.
I would say the problems will be felt in Braintree, they'll be felt in Civil Headingham, obviously Bardfield and Finchingfield, Wethersfield in particular, Shalford, even Samford, Radwinter. There's a lot of lorries will come off the M11 and come through Saffron Walden. Essex County Council have described the A120, which would be the nearest trunk road in, as appalling. I think anyone knows trying to get from South Braintree to north of Braintree during any rush hour time knows it's chaos. To have an extra 3,000+ vehicles a day coming through on top of that would just result in chaos. So the problems start at Braintree. It'll be Braintree people's problems as well as everyone else in the further villages.
In fact, an accessible prison location is also key to reducing crime, because regular contact with friends and family has proven to be a crucial factor in rehabilitation. Reoffending now accounts for 4 out of 5 crimes, putting the estimated economic and social cost of reoffending at a staggering £18.1 billion per annum. The Farmer report showed that visits by family, friends and loved ones had a substantial positive effect on rehabilitation, calling it the golden thread to help reduce reoffending. So if their goal is to prevent crime by improving rehabilitation, one would assume that building new prisons in a location accessible to friends and family would be critical to the Ministry of Justice.
You're asking families to visit 11 miles from Braintree or 10 miles from the train station in. It's too far, it's unfair. Any development of this scale is put next to a trunk road, next to a dual carriageway, next to easy infrastructure and good transport links. To try and put this site in probably what is one of the most remote locations in the country in relation to a strategic A road just goes against any planning policy ever written.
So one of the reasons we moved here was to live in a quiet village with not lots of traffic, that's safe for our family.
And this simply is going to be a disaster waiting to happen.
I mean, quite frankly, from a personal point of view, I'm absolutely amazed that there aren't more accidents in the rural roads around here. And I think it can only be because local people are aware of the dangers, they're aware of the pinch points, they're aware of what speed you need to go at, they're aware that the roads are very narrow, that they are dangerous. Once 2 prisons are built here, we're going to see people coming from everywhere from the country, travelling to Wethersfield Air Base to work at the prisons, to deliver things at the prisons, and they won't know the local road networks. They won't know where the dangers are. They won't understand what speed you have to go at, even though there are unlimited limits here. So you're going to see a significant increase in the number of incidents, accidents and injuries which are caused on the roads by traffic.
Why don't they just build it next to an existing road in the first place, which is part of their primary requirements for where they should site a prison in the first place. It's one of their basic requirements for a site. So why don't they find this site rather than trying to make this site work, which obviously it won't.